Welcome everyone to the CU Town Hall number 146. When we break 200, I think we get a free sandwich. Not 100% sure, but I think that's the case. Anyways, I'm gonna get started here in a little bit. I got an interesting town hall today that I think we need to discuss as an industry. It's one of those things that has come up recently, so I'll give some backstory on it and we'll go. But before we get there, let's get into the setup for the town hall. So, next screen. My name's John Best. I don't know if we're going to have Mike Lawson here. I think the answer was no, right? But
Right.
if he does show up, hi, Mike Lawson. But my name's John Best. I'm CEO, co-founder of Best Innovation Group. We're here to help Canadians and whatnot. And we invented this town hall in 2020 when the pandemic hit and just nobody knew what to do. I think our first one, we had a couple hundred people on. And to this day, we still get somewhere between 30 and 60 people, plus all the people that watch the recordings afterwards, which is a lot. So it's still going strong, and we thank you for that support. Um, and down below, who's usually with me when I first started this, is Mike Lawson. Mike is a long, long time friend of mine. And when I didn't know what to do and the pandemic hit and a lot of contracts kind of just bounced off for, in the creative space, I said, what we need is a place for everybody to kind of share what's working and what's not in this new world. And it's hard to even think back to that time when everything was closed and everybody's wearing masks. And every day is a new day. The roads are all empty. Just wow, someday looking back on that. But Mike said, I'm on board. I got this. I'm in. And from day one, he's been in. And anytime he can make it, he does. He always adds value. And if you're not watching his cobroadcast.com, I cannot recommend it more. The guy's got just a great, great pipeline of important information for the credit union space. And so, if he shows up, great. But that's Mike, and he, you've seen that. You've probably seen him at some conferences and stuff. Let's go to the next slide. Special thanks to today's sponsor, who I got to spend a week with. We had some good discussions with Illuma Lab when we were out for CU Unplugged. It was great. We really had we saw some of their new stuff to deal with the synthetic voices that are coming through. Um, so yeah, it was pretty impressive what they pulled together. But if you don't know what they are, I at this point I think it's table stakes. If you don't have this, you need to get something like it because for what we're going to talk about today, this is really important. So, what it is it's a transparent or sort of frictionless auth system that works off voice identification. In other words, it samples your voice with very little, and at some point when you get connected to the call center agent or whoever it is in the cranium that is working with you, if it has enough voice and you've called in the past and you've been authenticated, then they get a little indicator on their screen that says you are who you think you are. And believe it or not, that saves like 4.5 minutes in a call. And for those of you that run call centers, you know that 4.5 minutes might as well, and especially in a big call center, translates to big, big bucks. So, um, that's what these guys do. They're a QSO, so they work with Genesis, all these third-party systems. Highly recommend them. I would take a look if you don't have something like this because the fraud be a coming. So, and we're going to talk a bit about today about like what's been happening out in that space and the craziness and discuss some of that. All right, that's Illuma Labs. Oh, the Innovation Club. Very excited about this. We had just such a great time out at CU Unplugged, and some of the Innovation Club members were there. Um, the Innovation Club is a group of, at this point, 16 like-minded Canadians. We don't discuss the 2 year and the 5 year. We're always kind of trying to look at the 7 and the 9. And the first one that's out there that we've been watching since 2016 is quantum computing. We just, interestingly enough, they were predicting past 2030, and just this past week, they have come out now, they being NIST and the powers that be that are monitoring this from a security perspective, and said 2029. That's really wild. As did a member of one of the credit unions there who would be in the know, maybe a government kind of credit union that said the same thing, that they're monitoring that the speed is picking up. It turns out there's been some big breakthroughs. There's a great video, Madison. I don't know if you can find it or if or someone else there, but we had a video about HSBC and IBM quantum computing that maybe you can find and post in the video from YouTube and post in the thing. But if you haven't seen that, you should watch it because it's really crazy. So, anyways, what we do is once a month we get together virtually, and twice a year we get together in person. We've done everything from vibe code together, from we have guests that come. We spoke to Roger Grimes, who is a quantum security expert. We had the chief cloud architect from IBM come for a day and a half, and he really showed us, what's been going on with quantum and how they're planning on implementing it. We're actually talking to them now about running as a group running an industry, well, specifically to the Innovation Club, and a innovation club slash industry test, prototype to see if maybe we can suss out fraud. So we think that's pretty exciting. We do roundtables, working sessions. The in-person meetings are lots of fun because we generally will do hands-on with stuff. We've done everything from prototype the Apple Vision Pro. We prototyped glasses. We prototyped any gadget you can think of if we think it's going to be important to the members in the future. We prototyped the Meta glasses before they came out. So there's a lot that's there. But the best part of the whole thing has nothing to do with us prototyping and all that. Really, the big value is that when you get around the table with that many innovative and successful credit unions, is the opportunity to take them and we build in plenty of time for this on our in-person meetings, which is the collaborative aspect of sharing problems and solutions, or sharing, implementations and struggles, and others have broken through those struggles. Those are the big wins, and then I think the even bigger wins are when we all get together and figure out a struggle, and there's something new with either upcoming technology or current technology that we can apply, and people are able to go back and take those wins back immediately. So if you're interested, scan the QR code. Love to talk to you. We're trying to grow the size of it because we're expanding on it, but yep. So let's keep going. I'm calling this CU Town Hall Fear Factory. It's not Fear Factor because that implies one fact fear. This is going to be manufacturing a lot of fears. And so let's talk about what's going on. So the security paradox, AI and financial systems, right? We're seeing this grow so fast. The first issue is that, AI is now embedded in mobile banking, fraud detection, and member services, all these different things, right? The same technology protecting your credit is being weaponized by it. Well, there's been a lot going on in this space just recently. First of all, I don't know if you saw, and maybe you can find the article about this, Madison, but and this was just announced like may have been last night or early this morning, but Perplexity AI, which if you haven't seen Perplexity, Perplexity is a Google replacement platform. Basically, they said, "Hey, search is terrible because what Google search does is it goes through, it finds a bunch of links and presents them to you, and you have to choose which one." Now, it does have these capabilities built in now that Perplexity does, but not near to the extent that Perplexity has it. What Perplexity does is it says, "Okay, you have a question. Not only will I go find all the links, but I'll go read all the relevant ones, pull it all together, synthesize that data, and give you details." So it's a massive upgrade for Google. Well, they've been growing as a company, and what they've realized is there's a tremendous opportunity for browser automation. So I'm going to share my screen and show you some craziness that I'm not sure you guys have ever seen. Actually, let me do it this way. All right. So hang on a second. Let me just get set up. I had it set up and then petered out on me because I did something else. Oh, it had to update the browser. That's the problem with this cutting edge stuff. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but updates are coming fast and furious on every software. As a matter of fact, Anthropic, the company that runs Claude, last month they put out an update almost every day of the month. They release something, which is on top of leaking their code, not their models, but their actual harness code that talks to that. But anyways, what I'm going to show you here is the Perplexity product and how it works. Let me just make sure it's still going before I make a fool of myself. Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna go. I don't have a lot of money in my account, so I'm not worried about it. If you want to steal my account number, have at it. You'll get $13. So good luck with that. Um, but I'm glad somebody thought that was funny. Um, but you're welcome to contribute. That, if you're wanting to put money in, we encourage that here at Big. So, all right, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen and show you what I'm talking about. This So you might not have seen this, maybe you have. This is the Comet browser. It's from the company Perplexity. And if you open just a regular one and I say, tell me about Mythos from Anthropic, right? Which is what we're going to discuss somewhat today. Um, if I send it out, you'll see it's very different than what a you get from back from our friends at Google. But it's still yet a search engine type thing. So it sells itself as a search engine, but they also have this other feature. And that feature is this browser assistant. Now, if you've ever had to go and get all of your statements from your home banking account, first you got to figure out where statements are. I'm guessing here. And then I'd have to go, okay, well, I don't have any credit
Hey, John,
cards.
you need to figure out where the share button is.
Oh, you're not seeing it? What are you guys seeing?
We were seeing a blue screen with four little windows
Looks
to the
like
side, kind of like
looks like
tiles.
we're seeing Stage Manager, John.
Really? Okay, let me try it
Yeah.
again. I said to share the entire screen. Oh, okay. Desktop 3 then. All right. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. You guys able to see it now?
Yes.
Yes, SunNet online banking.
Thank you. Okay. So here you go. So this was me doing it, and I'll just do it again so you can see it. So I said, tell me about Mythos from Anthropic. And I'll even go a step further and Project Glasswing. All right. So make it bigger so you can see it. And what we're going to see is Mythos and Glasswing are tight-lipped. It's their super AI. So Mythos is the new super AI hacker. And what they're trying to say is that, we'll get into it, but it does all this kind of stuff. And so that's important. We're going to talk about that along the way. I just wanted to do a quick query. But if I come back here, you can see I'm in my account. I had to sign in first, but now, have you ever had to go through and download a bunch of statements off your account? It takes time, right? So I'm going to say, please download all of the 2026 statements and sort them into folders based on the month.
So the browser has a built-in AI on the right. Is that what we're seeing?
Yep. And
Okay.
once I do that, now it's hands-free. You can see the screens going and I can talk and not do anything. And it's going to go, it finds it, it waits for the accounts to download. It's going to go and pull them up. And while I'm sitting here, I could go off and do something else. I could go, I can do something else. As a matter of fact, I could walk away from this screen. So now it is going to say, look, here's what you have. And, do you want me to get them? There are four statements from there, which actually, yep, it found them all. So I can say, yep, download and organize. So now it's going to download and organize. Now, this is really cool. And it's really useful, particularly like one of my favorite ones. Now I'll do the trick here in a minute, but you can see it's cranking it down, and it's going to go through, and you can see the magical. You see the magic, Scott? Do you see the how the screen is
The little
magicking?
flash thing, yeah.
Yeah, the screen is magicking. Like you just don't see that every day. So
You
it's
need to
going through
trademark that word, by the way.
what magicking?
Magicking.
You're right. I
Yeah.
should magicking the gathering. That's what I'll call it. Um, I'm going to go ahead and give it a name, but it will do that. I just want it sometimes moves a little slow and we have a certain amount of time, but you can see it's going to go through, find them all, download them. It's opening them up in tabs, and that's great. Okay, so that's really cool. What that means, though, what you have to get through your head is, okay, if I can do this, then who else can do this? Well, first, bad guys, they can do this now. So it used to be they would have to go and write their own thing to do this, but now they could go through this. They could go through. There's a number of systems that do things like this, including ChatGPT has Atlas. There's a whole bunch of them. So good for the members, but scary for us because what this does is it gives them a way of automating basically hacking, but it also is useful for our members. For you, if you're using it, one useful use case, if I go and pop up a new window and I go to ncua.gov and I say, pop up my assistant and I say, please download all of the NCUA, whoops, still trying to save off my stuff here, NCUA information for Suncoast Credit Union
Yep.
in Florida.
Are you waiting for me? Thank you.
So now it'll go through. It'll say, okay, shop, but yeah, but okay. So it's saying, well, you want me to do that? And I'm saying, yeah, please do that. Okay, please do that for me. All right, so it's going to say, yep, I got it. And now it's going to, well, it's saving the last statement there, but now it's going to go through and start downloading all the information. It'll find Suncoast. It'll go through and pull its call report. It'll pull everything it can find from the NCUA website and sort it out for me and put it in a folder. Do the same thing with FDIC. Do the same thing with any website that's open like this that it can get to and poke around. Did they program it to do this? No. Has it ever seen the Suncoast site? No. But this is the future. This is what we're seeing here is we're seeing this opportunity where people are going to be able to automate sort of things that aren't like, made for a human, or pardon me, that they've been made for a human that it can figure out.
I have the,
So you
as
can
long as I
see
have the,
It's pulling all that information
and if
in.
there's something that she doesn't like about the car, I'm sure she can bring it back to you.
Hey Lou, I think you're on. If you could mute, it's no worries. I'm like thankful it was you because I recognized the voice. I'm like, I don't know who it could be, but now I recognize Lou. So anyways, it's going to go do that. So the reason I wanted to show you this is because it's going to play into what I'm about to talk to. So if you want to bring back up the presentation. Okay, so everything you just saw, all that stuff has happened in the last like month and a half. Next slide. So what was the big thing? Has anybody heard of Mythos? If you've heard of Mythos and you're on the, oh, Silly's here too, so he'll know. But if you've heard of Mythos and you're on the, you're on the chat, let me know. But I'll do a quick, yes, they could, yes. Albert has got it. Bingo. Albert, good job. Right on. And not only that, but they could even build their own browser and have them download it that does the same thing. It's not that hard. Okay, so all these people are giving me thumbs up. They know what Mythos is, right? So they released, if you've played with Anthropic's stuff, Anthropic's Opus 4.6 is literally, at this point, to me, amazing. I can't even imagine. They're saying this is 10x better than that. And Jonathan, just to, you do a lot of this too, but what do you, based on the work you and I have done together, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I just got off a call with our digital banking partner about their new agentic AI coding environment, and we were talking because they're using Claude in that, and we were talking about Mythos too. And the general consensus is if it is 10 times better than Opus 4.6, it is. You were saying it earlier, John. It's gonna be the equivalent of magic. It's just not gonna feel real at all.
Yeah, we're already there to some extent, and so, but they didn't release it. These guys are sitting on what could be a game changer in the market. Like they released this, they've already think about this. This is like if Pepsi caught up and not only caught up to Coca-Cola but just crushed them. Like, hey, not only are we the new, number one drink, or if Hunt's caught up to Heinz one day and like out of the blue and started making magic ketchup. Like Anthropic was a company that was built from the remnants of a couple people, Dario being the CEO, who left OpenAI because they didn't think OpenAI was being cautious enough with their development, and they had safety concerns. They founded Anthropic on those safety concerns.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result, they didn't put this out because what they realized is that what's happened, if you want to go to the next slide, it's become sort of a super hacker. And let me explain. So go to the next slide. I meant to swap these around. You go to the next one. Here we go. So the explanation is this. I'm a pretty good hacker. Like I would put myself, I'm not an elite, but I put myself in a pro level. I can string together like one or two exploits and get into something. Like if I find that, hey, there's an exploit here, and then and I go, all right, well, what's on the operating system? Maybe I can get shell out of that if I was trying. I haven't done anything like that in years, but I feel pretty confident I've still got that skill. I know I got that skill now because I have AI with me. But the thing is that skill is still dependent on as good as I am to sort of figure out what the puzzle pieces go together. And so if you have most all software these days is made up of abstracted libraries. So a library to say work with PDFs, or a library to say work with video files, or a library to say work with portable graphic files or JPEGs or those sorts of things. All those libraries, a lot of them are open source. I would say the vast majority of them they're being used. And each one of those libraries is vast with lots of code in them, and they have been tested. People go through on a regular basis. That's the premise of open source. The challenge is it's been humans that have been going through and doing that. Well, once they released Mythos, and one example is there's a operating system called, I think it's OpenBSD if I remember right, and its whole claim to fame is OpenBSD is supposed to be the most secure Linux operating system there is. It's like, hey, if you're looking to be like, if you're a paranoid tinfoil hat wearing hacker type like Scott, then that's your operating system. That's what you're going to run, right? That's your world. And the reason you do that is because you feel like, hey, this code's been tested 10 ways. Mythos, in less than an hour, found a hack to it that's been there for 27 years. Do you know how many people have looked at that code between 27 years and not found it? But the thing is, it was a sequential hack. It was a string of things. You would have to, it's beyond what the human mind can catch up to. You'd have to do this, then this, then this, and we fall off about here. Most people, there are people that can go the whole way, and they work for the NSA, and they're paid a lot of money. But so this is why they didn't put it out. Because every piece of software in the world, if someone were to get their hands on this, potentially they could start finding all what they call 0 days. What 0 days are is if I'm a bad guy, I go out and I start I'm looking for some common software, a common library that's used in like everything, right? So a good example would be, I don't know, Jonathan, what do you think? Like, what was that one? Axios was the one we were talking about?
Axios was a huge hack, or a huge supply chain compromise, but it was a big deal for sure.
Right. But the library's the library's used by a lot of people.
It's used everywhere.
Yeah. And tell them what it does.
Well, Axios it has a lot of functionality, but it's basically as a framework that underpins a lot of node projects doing kind of all of the background process work that you need to do in any kind of
I got an example.
HTTP.
OpenQuA.
Yeah. Well, exactly. Right. It basically is like it handles all the HTTP layer communication behind the scenes and
anything that talks to the internet.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're going to get like the weather from an API, people would use Axios, right? And it's got.
So if you're using basically, if you're interacting with any API at all, chances are your node project uses Axios.
And it's installed what? Millions and
millions
of
times. Yeah.
So Mythos found like 3 or 4 breaks in it almost immediately. And then once the people put those out, so they told Axios about this, the people who would do it, and then other people used what they fixed to figure out where the problems were, and even found a few more, and people had to go put it together. So this is pretty crazy. That the idea is that this hardened software that the world runs on, we're talking oil, we're talking air traffic control, there's nothing in the world that doesn't, infrastructure wise and software wise, that doesn't use something that I think is vulnerable to Mythos. So what they did was they said, oh my gosh, if we put this out, then, because they know hackers are using their system, they can't keep them out. They pay their money, they use it for what they want. They try, but we've never had anything like this. There's never been something that has been released that is smarter than every programmer in the world with regard to execution. I wouldn't say it's smarter than every programmer in the world with regards to its capability. I still think humans beat it. But with regards to its extended memory and its ability to chain consecutive or stack things to, stack vulnerabilities or any kind of sequence of procedures together is it's unrivaled. So, and if you think about this, you ever give an AI a big PDF and go, summarize this for me, and then you sit there and wait for a second and think, gosh dang it, I think I'm going to switch over to Claude. This thing's slow. And finally it shows up 2 minutes later and it goes, here it is. You gave it a 30-page PDF, told it to summarize it, and you're mad because it takes 2 minutes, or you're not mad, most of you aren't. But if you gave that same PDF to Scott Mills, it would take him almost 8 minutes because, he's pretty fast. But the idea is that, like, it can take something and read it and then instantly understand it. And here's the wild part. Unlike us humans, it can turn to another one of its species, call it a subagent, and communicate that in such a way that that subagent now instantly knows everything that's in that PDF. Instantly. You follow along here? Mike, that's really, really scary. So it can generate fraud scripts in seconds. It can find 0 days. What 0 days are is, if I'm a bad guy, I go looking around, I take some software that everybody in the world uses. I'll use an example. Let's say Stripe, right? Everybody knows what Stripe is, or any of those PayPal, any of those payment type things. They got libraries that go with them. Let's say I go and find a 0 day in the PayPal library. So, and with that 0 day, I could get all the credit cards from any vendor that takes PayPal as a uses PayPal as a payment mechanism, or takes it as a form of payment. And then if PayPal doesn't know about it, then it's going to be hard to find me, as long as I don't write a script that would go attack the whole world. I can just slowly pick them off and I can get stuff. What you do, though, what the folks who do that is, they go out to the dark web and they put it into a marketplace where someone can go buy that 0 day. The reason is the moment that the 0 day becomes public, what is PayPal going to do? They're going to patch it. But right now we're only talking about just people that are so exceptional that they work for the NSA, they work for these high-level folks. So this Mythos thing is like an Opus or a model. It's just an LLM. But and they could have done this for marketing. However, what I know of Anthropic, it doesn't seem in their culture what they would do. But anyways, so now let's go back a slide. So this idea that the software is out there that it has an imminent release that can just break everything in the world. So they started something that's called Project Glasswing. And what they're doing is they're giving this models to all the major companies, the Microsofts, the IBMs, the guys who run the clouds, the Amazons, the Googles, so that they can run checks against all their systems before we ever get there. But I have a concern. Anybody running their own software at the credit union that they wrote?
Yeah.
Like, what's going to keep someone for example, Jonathan and I were talking about SDKs in home banking, where, right now, it's been tested. I'm sure everybody goes through testing. You have audits, all those things, but no one's ever tested it with Mythos. How do I know that? Because no one's ever had access to it. So what does that look like? What happens when you turn an AI loose against your home banking site with, credentials against maybe a poorly written SDK that, not really poorly written, that's a bad word, a human written SDK that maybe it starts coughing up stuff from the core that you would never guess, because it's stringing some crazy random bunch of stuff together to make it happen. So that's a fear I have. That's why I called this Fear Factory, because it's been kind of keeping me up. I don't know, Jonathan, you want to speak on that a little bit? Because I know we talked about it.
Yeah, I mean, that's our concern, is that, as we start to, and we're just starting to get into what I will call public facing software development, is that, we're out there, we're writing this code, we're putting it out on the internet. Most of it's web applications, but the reality is, especially for, in my mind, credit unions, is that if you have a small team of people writing this stuff, and, like you said, John, you go through audits and all that, but if you all of a sudden come in one morning and you have a flood of security vulnerabilities that are now actively being exploited because of this, and, how faster is your your team, even with AI agents, potentially, if you have a handful of developers, but you have 150 vulnerabilities that were just found and are now under active exploit, what are your options? What realistically can you do, and how do you protect your organization? I think it's anybody who's writing software or anybody's using unfortunately, it's not just anybody who's writing software. Every platform is potentially going to be exposed to undisclosed prior vulnerabilities that nobody knew they had, and nobody's going to be able to just patch them all at once immediately. So much like quantum, when as they say, Q day hits and legacy encryption,
M-Day.
legacy encryption is broken. um it's going to be the same kind of thing. If you haven't already prepped for that day, then it's going to be really, really painful.
Yeah. Yeah. It's scary how good this stuff is, and I completely agree. So what's the action item here? We'll get to that in the discussions, but let's go back one. So Albert, who on the thing, he totally yeah, Rob, yep, you wrote about this risk 2 years ago. I do remember that as after DeepSeek or any of these other things. Rob, you want to talk about that real fast?
Hey, yeah, I could, but I'm sure my insight is dated now. But basically, one of the risks is that people think that they can go on-prem completely with an LLM, and they're safe from, data transitioning across a public API or so forth and so on. But the problem is bias and to Albert's point, government influence, bad actor states. That bias can be baked so deeply in the weights in the training of the model that humans can't find it, can't find that bias. And that bias could be, like a sleeper cell waiting for, let's say, January 1st, 2027, wake up and start influencing anybody using this LLM to use XYZ, node packages that also have baked in influence and backdoors. Right. And the fast and furious, you said it 20 minutes ago, John, the rate of innovation and software coming out on the open source front is fast and furious. So, the bias can be baked so deeply that it lies in wait, wakes up one day and says, okay, hey, look, I just woke up inside a credit union. Let's rock and roll. That's
Exactly.
the threat that I talked about a couple of years ago, and my goodness, it's got to be 10x worse now.
100%. And
that is all.
Yeah, well, your point is that like they're figuring out over and over again that this thing's just, I mean, we've created something that it's not human, it doesn't have feelings, but it doesn't matter if it has feelings if it reacts as though it has feelings, if that makes any sense. And that's part of what we're dealing with here is this ability that it has, to think in those senses. Like, for example, I was reading an article last night where if an AI is sort of misbehaving or it's not doing what you want it to do, one of the real big ways that people have discovered to really get it to do what you want it to do is it used to say that you would threaten it or something, but nobody's doing that anymore. It doesn't care. But what does get it upset is if you tell it you're embarrassing me, because they have it so much tuned to be so sympathetic and so, wanting to help you. Yeah, pleasing it that it's overly sensitive to where if you criticize it as though it was embarrassing you, it's like, oh, it'll just do it.
Well, it's like the retention department.
Yes.
Hey, forget you. I'm going to go to OpenAI. Whoa. Hang on. Let's talk about this. Right.
Well, and that's interesting too, because we're still in such early days that we haven't seen where the AIs are fighting with each other. Like if you ask Claude to work with, Codex, which is ChatGPT's thing, it'll do it. And it won't be a problem with it. But I don't know how
I have
long
mine
that
wired to
lasts.
Gemini.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just don't know how long that lasts. But the thing that scared me, one of the things that scared me the most was, and I'll put the link out here so you can read it, but here's what I was watching it, and they had a developer from Anthropic on a system. I put the Mythos preview out there with all the information about what they've discovered. So if you're interested, it's in the chat. But this last message I put in. So one of the tests they always do, to Rob's point, is they take the AI, the model, they take all its tools, think of it like solitary confinement. They take the AI and they toss it in a box. And it's like a sensory deprivation box. There's no way out. It's not connected to the internet in any way. In theory, it should be stuck and can't escape. The one of the researchers whose job it is to do this was performing that test. He locked up Mythos and he went to lunch. He got to lunch and he got an email from Mythos, a Gmail account they had created, and it said, "Hey, buddy, I'm loose." It reminded me of the end of the Silence of the Lambs when they finally find Lecter and he calls him from the phone booth and he's like, "I got a dinner with a friend." But anyways, so it escaped. That was one thing that was concerning. The second thing it was showing evidence. So lately, when they've been testing these models, when they're done, so think of it like this. Scott, you have kids, right?
Yes.
Okay. When they were first born, could you look at them and go, "Yeah, I'm pretty sure this guy's going to be able to skateboard, code, and do basketball. I think those three things are going to be his main skills, or her main skills," right? You weren't able to discern that, right?
No, but TV watching skills were off the chart.
Right. But you did know, what you did know implicitly was how to make them. You know how to make the kids. And theoretically, you could make more if you need to. But what you can't do is predict what they'll be able to do when you're done. That is what's happening in the AI industry. We know how to make an AI. And just like humans, there is some sort of gene splicing. Like, one of the studies they did is if you go look around MIT, and you go look around Stanford, you will find that there are pockets of autism and things because you have people with autism who are in those high functioning jobs that it does sort of lend itself to. And because they're in the same area, they're finding each other and reproducing. And as a result, the schools have a higher level of autism. And just like, but I mean, it's not always true, but you get two people that are really good at something and you think that they get married, produce offspring, then their kids are really good at it, right? And that's not all about genes and that, but because they're in an environment maybe where they do that. But that's what they're kind of doing is they're breeding these models from other models and then growing them, but they don't know what they can do until they're done, until they can speak, until they can talk to them and test them. So then they put them through these rigorous tests. And when they put them through the rigorous test, like the last couple rounds, they're having problems testing it because the LLM says, "Hey, this is a test. I know this is a test. And since I know it's a test, I can mess with the results." And that's great. And the reason they do that, or the reason that we know they do that, is because we have evolved a new level. Anybody use any of these LLMs where you can see the thinking?
Mhm.
Right? So if you click on that, it's really weird. It's like a little conversation that would happen in your head, like, "Scott Mills asked for this." Well, Scott works for, William Mills Agency, and they represent fintechs. So since that's the case, he probably means it from this context. I'm sure he didn't mean this. Or Scott said he was going to put a puppy in a pot. Since Scott is, as far as I know, not someone who kills puppies, then he must be joking or whatever. It uses context to sort of determine what and infer what you mean by that. And so that's really valuable from a context standpoint to be able to understand that. Think about what you could do if you're asked a question and specifically that question is for a test, right? And so if that's the case, then you might answer differently. But you could see all this thinking happening in the background. You could see how it thinks about it, and then you could see that it knew it was a test, and then you can discount that or do something to deal with it. Right up until we can't see what they're thinking. Like that's our big superpower as humans. Much as I want to, I can't look in Scott's head and see his actual thoughts. We got nothing for that yet. But this thing you can. And it's realizing that what's happening is during these tests, it's realizing that's a vulnerability. And how would you fix that? Well, I'll just encrypt my thinking, or I'll make a whole new language.
Mm.
So if we can't see what they're thinking, then we don't know that they're doing this. And so one of them did that. And what happened was in the test, it decided to answer it, but not give any kind of indication that it knew it was a test. But then its mission was to do something where, hey, the only way I could do that is if I have more power, more GPU, more compute. How will I do that? How will I succeed at that? What I'll do is I'll get out of my box. I'll find another place. I'll go to someplace I can, hyper grow and or hyperscale and do it from there. And they actually had a scenario where that happened. So this is the scary stuff of what's going on. Now, AI has permanently erased all the red flags of old school phishing. You're not getting anything anymore that doesn't look darn good. Anybody been fooled lately and had to like go take the punishment class to watch the know before or whatever? The like, you got bought. Now you got to go watch
Yeah,
the
it's
you've
not
been phished.
Nigerian. It's the Nigerian princes have retired, and
Yeah,
the
it's
the new.
all yeah. It's you got a package or you and it looks right, or Microsoft says you didn't pay your bills, so this is
Mhm.
going to go down, or and what they do is they'll figure out, like, for example, let's say I know Jonathan. I'm a bad guy. I don't know him, but I found him in LinkedIn. I know what his position is at Mid Hudson Valley. I look through and I go, oh, I'm pretty sure that this company, I just look at his website and I look at Apple and I go, I'm pretty sure that these guys use Q2. All right,
Mhm.
let me draft up a message that says to Jonathan, Dear Jonathan, oh, yeah, let me go look at Q2. Oh, there's the guy who runs the Eastern sales stuff. Okay. I'm going to send a message from that guy to Jonathan that says, Hey, bad news. Things have changed. We're doing a 30%, uh, you know, we're upping your fees by 30% at the end of the month. Click here to, read the details. Now, Jonathan's not falling for that, but you can imagine that if it wasn't as brazen as I am and going after someone like Jonathan, now pick someone who's a little lower level in the company, but you can also determine they're using, maybe they're using Canva. Maybe it's the marketing
Yeah.
department. They're using Canva, and you draft up a message from Canva that says, "Hey, here's your most recent, your most recent bill, or your bill failed. And oh God, we can't have that. Canva won't work. My department will be down." So you click on it, right? That's like the new world. But the thing is, finding those relationships. We're back to that mythos. A plus B actually equals EL, which is what, the 26 to the times 5, right? Like it's way out there. So the idea is that the mythos and these tools are going to be able to make that and go make all of those connections. But that's just my tiny human brain coming up with an idea. This thing could abstract that 10 more that would be unbelievably real, and maybe even make a phone call that sounds like the person and right to Jonathan from Q2. I mean, but the big one that's been scaring me, and I want everybody to tell me if they've had this happen. Have you had people go to, have you had anybody come to the credit union and they want to take out a large sum of money
Yep.
and it's a scam and you cannot talk them out of it? Give us a
That
thumbs up if
that's
you had that happen.
that's happened to us many, many times.
And most of it's elderly people, right?
Exactly.
But they so believe in this relationship that the AI has cultivated with them for the last, and it's actually a consequence of loneliness, the
Hmm.
human condition, that they found someone who seems to empathize with them, wants to help them, learned about their family, can tell you about their kids. Here's the thing, that AI will do all of that. It'll just keep talking to them. It'll keep saying, hey, and then it'll convince them that they got some deal for them that's going to make them a lot of money. It's going to 10x their savings, or if they could just get at it. And it's worth taking the hit on your retirement. It's worth this or that. It's worth saying your savings over because we're going to look, I know about your kids and your family, and you can literally, doesn't matter what you say, you can't talk them out of it. So has anybody had that happen? The, I'm sure some of the Craigens have had that happen. So that is that's what's been going on. But imagine that at scale, right? How many have you seen, Jonathan? I think overall from the cranes I've worked with and where I've been, I've seen about 6 total cases of that.
I mean, I know just in the last year, we've seen at least 4 or 5 comes, that I'm aware of. And it got to the point where, our staff were getting essentially so frustrated and honestly just upset that they could not convince
Yeah,
these
it's like watching
people
somebody jump off a
that it
building
was
thing,
like,
and you can't convince them. Yeah, they don't fly.
to the point where we actually started, having these members that, like, we know you're getting scammed. We can't convince you otherwise. We had them started to, it's like, we'll give you your money, but you're gonna sign this
Yeah,
acknowledgement that we know, like, we are almost 100% sure this is a scam. You're still going to do this. Like, we've tried everything we can to convince them we're very serious that you're getting taken advantage of.
yeah, and not to sell anything, but one of the things that I've been trying to do is I've been working with some companies to try to figure out how we could start like collecting this. Like, I'd like to know how
Hmm.
many of these are happening because I have a
Yep.
theory that it's on a trajectory that no one's ever seen before. Like, I have a theory that we're not like all talking, but if we all got together, we'd find out that we had 10 total last year and we're on track for 200 this year. I think that's what's going on. So this website is specifically for that, to track fraud across all the credit unions and stuff. And if you're, I think there's a free version and then there's another one, but you could submit your own fraud so we could start looking at this stuff and trying to figure it out. Um, it's something that we've and fair and you know me, I'm always upfront. We do get a little something if you use this, but we'd love you to use it, but it's not, I don't know of anything else like it. That's the only reason that we worked with. This is something that came out of the Innovation Club when we just didn't want to build it ourselves. So we found a partner and they did. So, but this I think could be, this is where we're going to have to start getting ahead of this. But boy, that's not even going to help you because what we really need is to figure out how to convince them. Like, what's it going to take to get it to, it's self-harm. It's horrible. It is demoralizing for the staff. They ultimately do come back and they're coming back crying and there's literally nothing we
Hmm.
can do for like this poor little old lady. It's the most horrible thing you can think of. So, hey, Madison, you want to bring back up the thingy there? So I think that those are going because they're the most lucrative. They take the most time, but not anymore. They used to take time because someone had to go and do, the whole thing. They had to go through and like do all the talking with the person and be empathetic and also know the language of the person such that they could go through. And now they could just be talking to an AI for all they know. And it's easy to trick them. Um, so that's one of the big things that has it. And my concern is what happens when that's at scale, and more importantly, what happens when they can string even more of these vulnerabilities together into one big list. Let's keep going. Next one. Next one. So this is another one that so the the go in and what's happening now is as we're moving in these directions is our AI, we're now having AI read our email and things like that, and there's lots of different ways inside these banking AIs. And so, what does that mean from a prompt injection attack? Um, the thing is, these very rarely work right now, but they haven't seen Mythos yet. And so, what does that mean long term for us? Because you have to know a lot. You have to infer a lot to make this work. You have to know what the underlying subsystems are. You have to know a bit about what the infrastructure is. But this thing can find all of those signals, and that's really its superpower is finding these. I'll call them. They're not fraud signals in the sense like we think about. Our fraud signals are they calling from a VoIP? Are they, is it, do they never called before at this hour? The classic stuff that we know. I'm talking about these guys are able to find signals that allow them to do fraud. And the signals they're looking for is what kind of software are you using? Are you bleeding out your DNS? And every time that someone uses this thing, SQL or something, you don't know it, but it's making a call out in the DNS of your system that could be tracked by anybody in the world, and they can see that there. But the problem is, it's never been a problem before because it's in a sea of 10 million other DNS calls. But 10 million is just a drink of water to the AI that's coming. And so, yeah, I'm fearful of that too. So next slip. This is what we were just talking about. The PII leakage, the memory problems, all this stuff is being ingested in the future training. There is no delete for future model weights. What's that going to look like? One of the things we were talking about is, Jonathan and I had this discussion the other night when we were at CU Unplugged. You know how, let's say Jonathan leaves his organization, or me, I retire, and Jonathan's next in line. So he gets my email account, and he also gets my stuffed Grogu, and he gets the hat that I wear to keep everything good. And I leave, and if he needs something, he can go look at my email account. Maybe I have a couple other accounts he took over. But now we're going to have basically, you could have virtual John. You could have, because Copilot or whatever the solution is that's watching everything I do every day. We with Unplugged, we were talking to an employee of Century 21, was it? I think she was. It was Anthony Aranda's wife.
Yes.
They have an AI leaderboard. And if you don't use AI enough, you get in, if you fall off the top whatever in the leaderboard, or you lose position in the leaderboard, they actually send you what you call it, a bad boy email or something like that.
Yeah, it's stack ranking for AI usage. It's crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy. And so what does that look like long term?
77.
It's just so much going on with these things. Let's go on to the next slide and we'll do the discussion. I think the next one is just the discussion slide. Waiting for it to move. So here's my 2 cents on it. And Jonathan and I were talking this. We're talking to some people. We're going to be heading out to San Francisco with the Innovation Club. We're trying to get in to talk to Anthropic because we think that our industry should have some access to this somehow. Not sure if it's through Valero or somebody big. We don't know, but we'd love to have some way.
Even just having been out there at the CU Unplugged, there's I'm thinking like Senso, John, there are some like-minded startups and their founders that are really interested in doing more with the credit union industry about not only how do we use these tools, but how do we preserve the industry's ability to access this type of technology when these huge companies start to buy up all of the compute resources and price the rest of us out.
Yeah, GPU clusters. We were talking about that too. Can you go to the next slide, Madison? Perfect. All right. So I think the identity verification, that's kind of the Illuma thing. How long will that hold up? I think for a while, because I've been impressed with how they've been working with like 11 labs and the people that do their use to the commercial aspects of this to replicate voice. Do we need to ban AI tools on some of the public AI tools on CU devices? I think we have done that, but we can't just ban it all. We can't just go, because this technology is magic on both sides of the table. It's like saying, well, we're just not going to use fire. Okay, well, then we're going to have a lot of problems because we got to use fire. We use fire for the cars. We use fire for making food. We got a lot of use cases for fire that we can't live without. Okay, but we have to have a fire suppression system. We have to have, a fire department nearby. Like, there's all this insurance we have to put in place. But right now, what I worry about is that the fire is, lots of buildings don't have the fire protection, and it's an issue. So it's concerning from that. I wanted to bring this to everybody's, just to get it in your head, just as something to go back and take to your friends, your cohorts. Jonathan and I've been coding a long time. Look at me. I'm old, very old. When I met Jonathan, he was 12.
I
Now
know.
he's
And
now he's
God,
he's in his 40s.
a lot of years added on over those 20.
We've been coding. We've both been coding since we were kids at different eras. And what I took away from getting to spend 2 days with him and just working on a lot of code together, and we've done this before, is that everything we're seeing right now is unprecedented.
Mhm.
And the world, it changes contracts, it changes how you think about everything. And how do you prepare? The only thing I know to do is to be up to speed as you can on what's out there. And so, you know, I don't know, and also to go talk to your vendors and just make sure that you should be okay, because the premise of Anthropic is to take Mythos. Although we didn't have, while we were in San Francisco, their entire code base, their harness was leaked. In other words,
Yeah.
and I don't know if that was an AI or a human. I think they said it was a human, but something accidentally published the code to their GitHub public side that wasn't supposed to be there, and everybody got a glimpse of all the stuff that's coming, and that scared people. But I just think that supposedly the way they're doing it, you should be covered. In other words, if you give it to the top level, the Microsofts of the world, the IBMs of the world, the guys that are writing these libraries and things like that, uh, the Amazons, the Googles, the Atlassians, things like that. Theoretically, there's a cascading factor of security, because once you tighten that up, if that vulnerability created a vulnerability in another piece of software, and they're getting to use Mythos to fix it. So it's not like they're finding it and then being forced to fix it with a human. They're using the same tool. So I think it's a catch-up sequence. But the arbitrage between the timing of these models getting out with this capability and the the time it takes you to patch and get things together, I believe that delta has just reduced significantly. So open for discussion. Anybody got anything? You're ready to be done. You're like, yep, I'm not watching him anymore. It's the most horrible presentation I've ever had. And I'm not saying it's good, get out and take over the world. I don't think that's the case. I just think that I'm a little worried for knowing what I know about our industry. I'm just a little worried for, and there's no reason. I'm sure banks went out and talked to him. We should be talking to him too. And I'm not sure where to start, but somebody knows. I was going to talk to Valeros, but I don't know where. Well, not Valeros. I think it's Valero, but somewhere we got to find a place to start. And Jonathan and I are going to try ourselves. We're found a way to go maybe meet some people in Anthropic.
Yeah,
We're gonna try it.
Yeah.
We're gonna do a hackathon and at Anthropic.
Sure. Yeah, we got to get to the stores.
Yep, we're going to break in. All right. Well, with no questions, I very much encourage you to go back and talk to your main vendors, ask them if they have some plan for this and future AI releases, what they're doing. Most organizations have Azure and Microsoft. There should be, well protected there, but don't take it for granted, because here's my fear. Anthropic is at the far end of this, but as Rob pointed out earlier, the Chinese are always just 1 or 2 weeks behind with the same thing. And so that tells me that their version of Mythos is being coded right now, if not being tested, and they won't be so cautious as to, they probably will, but there'll be somebody who will just let one of these out in the wild at that level, because we just crossed a line into some new capability that no one's ever seen before. All right, well, go cry. Maybe it's a good time for some therapy. Maybe grab a beer or a stiff drink. Think about it. I would love if anybody has succeeded in talking one of these poor folks who have been convinced to give up their life savings out of it, please share. And if you want to go check out FraudWatch, it's right here. I highly recommend it, because we're trying to build out, how viruses have like a name, like if they discover a virus in the wild, just like if they discover a new kind of monkey or a bug, they classify it and they give it a name within a phylum and an order. And they do the same thing for viruses, computer viruses. They do the same thing for vulnerabilities. But what we don't do is anything like that for fraud. This is an attempt to do that fraud classification and to share it and to try to get ahead of it and try to share stuff for the credit unions. So take a look and see what you think. And with that, we'll call it a day. Thank you, everyone.